Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick update on my experience with the Sony Alpha A6000. This is the latest addition to the NEX, now Alpha family of mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras from Sony, based around an APS-C size sensor. So you get incredible still and video performance in a very compact form factor. None of that has changed. In fact, all of that has been improved upon. So this is looked at by many as the successor to the NEX6 and NEX7, but I can tell you this is the successor only truly to the NEX6 in just about every way. So we've moved from a 16 megapixel sensor to a 24 megapixel sensor, and you can see that right here on the branding. APS-C class, ISO capped out at 25,600, which you don't want to be using, but I can assure you, you do get very good low light performance with this camera, much like its predecessors before it. 11 frames per second, continuous autofocus now, out of that fast hybrid autofocus system. So the fast hybrid autofocus system we had with the NEX6 and 5R introduced last generation, which gave us phase and contrast detection rather than just contrast detection like many Sony cameras, in order to make it competitive with the general digital SLR competition, has finally been realized here with that 11 frame per second continuous autofocus. All powered, by the way, by Sony's Beyond X processor, which is inside this camera, as well as every other high-end DI equipment that they're making today. You've got an OLED electronic viewfinder, Sony's TrueFinder, which is very good, but it is a downgrade in terms of literal specification from the NEX6 and 7 before it. They did have a higher resolution OLED viewfinder, but in terms of real-world use, no perceivable difference for me. I mean, not enough to justify anything other than telling you it's just lower in terms of specifications. Wi-Fi as well as NFC on board, and that's pretty much it in terms of specifications off the top. Built-in flash that you can actually control and articulate in order to bounce to your liking, which is definitely a good thing. Sony had initially brought that, as a feature with some cameras, then taken it away, and here it's back, because clearly we'd all prefer to have that capability than not. In terms of what's up top, very clean top frame of the body, very similar to the A7 and A7R. They did integrate what looks to be the design of the NEX7 Tri-Nav, but this is not the Tri-Nav in terms of functionality. Traditional mode dial, and then we have a customizable switch here, essentially, yet another dial. And you can do what you want with that, navigate through menus, assign it. It's just another customizable switch, as it was on the NEX6, but in a stacked design. This is far more user-friendly in terms of ergonomics. Your thumb is going to seamlessly move between these two rather than trying to, basically differentiate between the top knob and the lower knob on the NEX6 in the stack symmetry that it had before. In terms of customizable buttons, things that you should know, you've got a customizable button right here next to the power and shutter button. Power button right here, shutter button right there. You can see the camera powers on and off quite quickly. That's another thing that, at least when this lens first launched, there were some issues with the NEX7. Cameras that weren't optimized for the power zoom, those days are long gone. This thing starts up again, as you just saw, very quickly. And that's not something that was necessarily associated with NEXs of days past with a power zoom. So even though this is now an Alpha, maybe that's part of the reason. This is a new brand, new design, new performance level. But really, the technology at the core is still the same, and as is arguably just about everything. Now, in terms of beyond the top, I also want to point out we do have the multi-interface shoe, something that most of you are familiar with already. For those of you that aren't, this is going to allow you to attach external flash, an external microphone, an XLR adapter, whatever you want pretty much that can actually go on there natively. And with regard to the NFC and Wi-Fi, You can do a lot of different things. The NFC is going to allow you, with your NFC compatible tablet, smartphone, iPhone users unfortunately do not have NFC yet, eventually one day. That's going to let you instantly launch a remote control application to take over this camera, shoot stills or video. Really a very convenient feature, one of the most practical free features of their Sony's Play Memory application store. But then you do have access online. You'll have to create an account and basically get access to their Play Memory application store, and then you can just surf from your phone, from your camera right here on the 3-inch display, purchase applications, use them, time lapse, all sorts of different apps. I've reviewed many in the past. It's growing, I won't say day by day, but year by year, and that's a good thing considering these are camera applications. Sony pushing the envelope in a good way here, especially for the A6000, with improvements all around. So you've got that 3-inch display that can articulate. Essentially, an important thing between the A6000 and the previous generation is that menu system. And it's big difference. And that's because we have a traditional Alpha menu system now, like you'd find with any of their high-end interchangeable lens cameras. And that's another part of the rebranding of Alpha, of NEX to Alpha, is that it came in the form of software. So it's really in every way other than the actual technology under the hood. I mean, when you talk about the sensor, that's still the NEX core. I mean, the actual things that have changed, though, yeah, the look is still very close, but it has changed a little bit because, as I mentioned, we've got a frame now that looks like the Alpha series, the A7, A7R, rather than the traditional thinner profile of the NEX lineup. But beyond that, other things that point to redesign, you've got the software, also performance now. I mean, we've got a lens lineup that's far more comprehensive. It's almost as if, I'm not going to say Sony had planned this from the beginning because clearly they didn't, but it now makes a lot more sense to me than it ever did when they dropped NEX, because this lineup of camera has become a different beast, and it really does now match the Alpha name. Not that the NEX name was a bad name, but Sony knew the Alpha name was synonymous with their higher-end cameras, and they wanted this to become part of that backbone since it was popular and in many ways was becoming more of a competing product than a complementary one. No audio in, so you're not going to have the ability to put a line in for external audio unless you use an XLR adapter, which is a bit of a pain, no question about it. But you do have access to clean HDMI out right here, which is definitely a good thing. Also, Sony's multi-port, which is going to allow you to hook up things like, besides just the charging cable, which is a micro USB, by the way, to charge the battery on board. No Sony cameras come with external chargers, for those of you unfamiliar. They did away with those a long time ago. I think the NEX7 was the last camera to come with one of these. Now you have to buy them separately, but basically charge in body. But you can also use that port for things like remote controls for shutter release, things like that. So that's why it's dubbed a multi-port. But other than that, the only other thing to show on the body, on the bottom here, your battery bay, also access to the memory card slot, which is also a memory stick compatible slot, of course, since this is a Sony camera, but it is a single slot. Battery life on here has been great. Sony rates the camera at 360. I've been getting over 400 shots, and even with some video on the side. No overheating issues at all, and I've pushed the video on this heavy. I even tried using it for the digest. Still just not an ideal solution, despite the very solid autofocus, and it really does have incredible autofocus speed. This is not just a marketing gimmick. It's real, and it's actually making me consider picking one of these up for myself to use exclusively with the FE70-200, besides obviously with the A7R. In terms of other things you should know beyond battery life and overheating, the 24 megapixels really does make a difference. I know some people are worried about low light performance. Don't be. I haven't had any issues working with any of my E-mount glass. And of course, if you're going to use other primes, you're only going to get even better performance. So this is, Sony knew what they were doing here. This is not a haphazard, basic, or I'll say a haphazard attempt at bringing together great specifications and then failing at execution. This is really a product of the maturity and success of their NEX business, which has now become the Alpha line of mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras, which in my opinion is the best lineup and most comprehensive in the marketplace. Granted, Micro Four Thirds has a very big footprint because there's a tremendous amount of glass out there, a lot less expensive glass, but that's because Sony made their own mount. I mean, give them a little credit, please. I mean, the fanboys need to wake up and smell the coffee here, the roses, whatever you want to smell, because the fact of the matter is that when Sony started making these mirrorless cameras, people thought it was just going to be a flash in the pan, and now everybody's doing it, and Sony's doing it the best. The A7R, A7S, those are industry standard type cameras for their form, and the A6000 is no different. Just a much lower price point. It gives the person that doesn't want to spend a fortune the ability to have digital SLR quality. Now, even with autofocus speed, something that the NEX brand was never known for, in something that literally can fit in your pocket. And let's remember, this is literally palmable. So this can get in a pocket. This can easily, granted a large pocket, but a coat pocket, a woman's clutch, a small bag, this is easily going to travel with you. And yeah, the RX100 is definitely a good camera, or Mark II, to compare this to. A lot of people will because of the price point. They're pretty close. 700 retail, I think, right now. This was originally 750, and the 6000, 800. Very similar range on the lens, at least in terms of kit lenses, and this one, the kit is built in. But here you've got more of a prime type lens because it's much faster. I'm not going to get into comparing that. Save that for another video if that's something of interest for all of you. And I think it might be, considering the price point, despite how different they are, one being fixed lens CyberShot, the other being interchangeable mirrorless APS-C. But when it comes to quality and performance, Sony really has got this camera just about as right as you possibly could. Is it perfect? No, but it's really, really nice. I wish the build quality was better. By that I don't mean it's bad. I mean I wish I saw more of the metallics. Sony has slowly taken away some of the high-end build material and quality that they had in order to get the price lower. But they haven't sacrificed performance, and that's what people will really care about. And even though I'm mentioning that, that's just because I've seen every camera that they've made in this lineup, and I've seen the changes. Overall, even though this has less metallic or magnesium alloy than previous generations, it still has some, and it's still really solid. And because it's thicker, has a larger grip, better ergonomics, I actually would rather use this camera than the older generation. So there's really no downside to this, literally, other than that lower res OLED viewfinder. Everything else, even with the build quality downgrade that I mentioned in terms of materials, the actual design and weight and grip are all much better, noticeably better, in my opinion, than previous generations. As I mentioned, really lending from the A7 and A7R, which for the alpha of APS-C mirrorless interchangeable lens systems is an inherent upgrade. I only wish that soon we'd see the OLED viewfinder moved, but right now, for such a compact camera that packs everything into such a small form, it makes sense that it's still sitting there flush on the left-hand side. But really, they've stuck with what works, just more customizable buttons. They've changed the grip a little bit and just improved everything. So the A6000 is a winner, folks. This isn't my full review, but I think it's pretty clear that if you pick this up now, you're going to be very happy with what you get. And again, if you're wondering whether or not you need the kit lens, you probably need it if you're wondering. If you plan to buy a prime lens, some Zeiss glass, you want to really leverage the 24 megapixels, I recommend it. Go do it. A lot of people will be hesitant, though, because for a $650 body, they won't necessarily want to spend as much, if not more, on glass than the whole camera itself cost. And that's one of the things, the hurdles that Sony has to deal with trying to make such a great camera with such broad appeal to a traditional consumer who would just buy a point and shoot, as well as an amateur, an enthusiast, hobbyist, and pro. Everybody in the entire spectrum. And what this camera really does represent, in my opinion at this point, is that maturity of Sony making a mirrorless interchangeable lens camera that truly replaces the digital SLR, not only in terms of performance, but of course the weight is gone as well now in the form factor. And so many people associated these cameras with point and shoots to this day and really didn't take them seriously because of their size. But Sony's finally started to get traction. Like I said, every manufacturer is making mirrorless cameras now for a reason. It's because they're no longer the future, they are the present, and you can thank Sony for that. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.